Hey everyone, Gary Simon of Coursetro. What the hell's with the 3-hour-long video? You're probably wondering. Well, I realized I had this course sitting around that nobody was using. I wasn't selling it anymore, didn't even make it for free. So I decided, you know what, I might as well just upload it, make it for free. So it's on visual identity design / logo design. And the course is structured in such a way, and you're going to see after this introduction, myself from about 4 years ago, and I'm definitely a lot more chubby. I drank way too much beer. I cut that out. Anyhow, at the beginning, I just introduced basic concepts that are relevant to visual identity design. And then the rest of the course is focused on 3 different projects that kind of follow the same flow / outline so you can get muscle memory, designing effective logos and identity designs. So all of the information and even the tech, you're still going to be able to follow along even though it's 4 years old. I'm not using anything that's advanced in terms of Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop, so you should be able to follow along perfectly. All right, so if you enjoy this, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube and check out my site, coursetro.com. All right, go kick some ass. So what is a visual identity? A visual identity are all of the visuals that make up a company's brand. So to accurately ascertain exactly what a visual identity is, we first have to understand what a brand is. A brand encompasses everything that can affect how people perceive a company. So everything from their logo design, to their audio jingles, to their spokespeople, their CEO with the crazy wacky hair and attitude, everything that a company does that can be felt, smelled, heard, seen, or taste even makes the brand. Now, a visual identity only concerns itself with the visuals that make up a brand. So this includes everything from the use of colors, to the logo design, to the website design, to the print and stationery design, etc. Now, a logo design is a part of a brand, and it falls under the visual identity. And it's the visual identity represented in its most basic and simple form. So when you're presenting a client with a full visual identity, you're not just designing a logo, you're providing them with all the visual aesthetics that they can use as a company. And that's what we're going to focus on in this course. So in the next lesson, we're going to focus on the use of color in the relation to a visual identity. The use of color in design goes far beyond just choosing what looks good together. Aside from this, we must also consider the objectives of the brand and color psychology. Understanding color psychology is absolutely crucial as an identity designer. Each color can elicit certain emotional responses, and certain colors used together can entirely change those responses. So let's take a look at the colors in which we're familiar and what they typically represent for a brand. Black is devoid of color, therefore its use in a brand can be powerful. It can be used to represent prestige, power, authority, and even fear or uncertainty. White is positive, pure, and safe, and is regarded as such much more consistently around the world than any other color. Red is the most energetic and passionate color. Common emotions that can be derived from red can vary. It can evoke feelings of passion, happiness, violence, anger, etc. Blue typically represents confidence, intelligence, stability, and calmness. When we think of blue, we think of the sky or the ocean, both stable, consistent, and calming. We all, of course, generally associate the color yellow with happiness and vibrance, as the sun is essential to life and makes us feel good. But different shades of yellow can be used to represent caution or sickness even. Green can represent nature and energy, as it's the most prominent color we see in nature, but it can also represent wealth or even greed. Orange is red and yellow combined. Red is passion and energy, and yellow is vibrance. Orange draws on both of these colors to elicit feelings of joy and happiness and positivity. Pink is personable, friendly, and approachable. It can be used to convey childhood in some instances or romance in others. Much like green, brown generally brings us back to nature and organics, but can also represent honesty, connection, and calmness. Purple typically represents prestige, power, and luxury. Now with that quick rundown of colors and their perceived meanings, we will put that information to use when we design our future projects. In the next lesson, we're going to take a look at typography. Understanding typography is very important when constructing a visual identity. And it's not just important for the logo design. It's also important to establish a preferred typeface selection that a company can use throughout their visual identity. First, it's worth defining some of the terminology that's associated with typography. A font allows you to set the size, style, and weight of a typeface. In other words, a font is simply the delivery mechanism of a typeface. And a typeface is the physical appearance and design of the actual characters. A font family is a collection of typefaces that are intended to be used together and consist of varying weights and styles. Kerning is the process of adjusting the physical space between individual characters. Letter spacing, or tracking, is the physical spacing between blocks of characters, not to be confused with kerning, which is the actual space between individual characters. Leading is the amount of vertical space between lines of actual text. The first consideration when selecting a typeface for use within a visual identity is serif versus sans serif. Serif fonts convey tradition, sophistication, establishment, luxury, etc., while sans serif fonts are commonly associated with being modern, minimalistic, and simplistic. In order to determine whether serif versus sans serif is most appropriate for a given identity, you need to refer back to the project brief. The target audience, industry, and objectives of the company will help you make the best decision. And the typeface you use to display the business name in the logo does not have to be the typeface used elsewhere throughout the visual identity. Now that we're familiar with some of the basic concepts and terminology surrounding typography, we will put it to use in our future identity projects. But in the next lesson, we're going to take a look at what a corporate identity guideline is. An identity guideline, or a brand identity guideline, is a document that outlines several different aspects as it pertains to a company's brand. First, it will typically outline the objectives of the brand and what the company is about. It will outline the use of colors, typically detailed with the color codes in various color formats. The typeface selections, along with a preview of the typeface and also a presentation of the logo. Some identity guidelines provide specific instructions on how their identity can and cannot be used. Many of the largest companies have identity guidelines that are nearly 100+ pages of specific information because they care about how their brand is presented. Consistency is key. For example, some identity guidelines will show you what colors you can use with their logo, the margins that must be respected when displaying their logo, and even the orientation and placement of their logo in respect to other elements. Ultimately, an identity guideline seeks to both display and inform others about the company's identity and brand in order to ensure it's understood and used correctly, allowing for a clear and consistent presentation of the brand and identity. We will create a corporate identity guideline in one of the projects that we do in the future. But first, we're going to conclude this chapter by taking a look at the various forms of logos. An identity guideline, or a brand identity guideline, is a document that outlines several different aspects as it pertains to a company's brand. First, it will typically outline the objectives of the brand and what the company is about. It will outline the use of colors, typically detailed with the color codes in various color formats. The typeface selections, along with a preview of the typeface and also a presentation of the logo. Some identity guidelines provide specific instructions on how their identity can and cannot be used. Many of the largest companies have identity guidelines that are nearly 100+ pages of specific information because they care about how their brand is presented. Consistency is key. For example, some identity guidelines will show you what colors you can use with their logo, the margins that must be respected when displaying their logo, and even the orientation and placement of their logo in respect to other elements. Ultimately, an identity guideline seeks to both display and inform others about the company's identity and brand in order to ensure it's understood and used correctly, allowing for a clear and consistent presentation of the brand and identity. We will create a corporate identity guideline in one of the projects that we do in the future. But first, we're going to conclude this chapter by taking a look at the various forms of logos. Hello and welcome to the first follow-along project. The name of this fictional company is You Versus, or in other words, you versus someone else. So the name again is You Versus, and this company is an online gaming company that allows you to choose your favorite games, and it will randomly pin you up against other competitive online gamers. All right, so our job as visual identity designers is to first design a logo for this business and then as well provide a full visual identity. So in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and get started by sketching up a potential concept that is relevant and unique to this company. All right, so this project, of course, is U-verses. And basically the idea I came up with when I was experimenting with this particular fictional project is coming up with a lettermark logo. So if you recall, lettermark logo is basically either a single initial or multiple initials of a business name combined into one unique and relevant symbol. All right, so in the case of this first project, U-verses, we have the Y and a V. So the first thing I would do is just real quickly draw out a basic Y and a V side by side. All right, so the idea is to try to merge these into a single symbol. So we can see right away they're very similar, the Y and the V, in that we can take the Y and the V and transfer it right here in this portion, just like that. So in and of itself, just having a Y, we can see a V in it, but if you just put in the Y as it stands right here, we'll see anybody will just kind of look at that as a Y. So another idea I had was to basically take the same shape and make a V up here and make it thick, roughly like that. And then down here, make the extending portion, the bottom portion of the Y right there, except a space in the middle. So this in and of itself, we can derive a few potential different meanings from it. So first we have the whole Y, then we have the V up here, but also in the context of the actual project, which is a gaming company, we could see an idea of verses right through here. We have this basic shape, and if you think about it, when it comes to the idea of competition or being versus somebody, you kind of have this idea of a clash coming together. So in the idea that we have the Y here, the V here, but also this edge here, which basically emulates the idea of clashing or competition, we have a letter mark that is effective in that it represents the Y, the V, which is the letter mark, and also something that's relevant to the actual company. So what I want to do is just take this final mark. I'll make a bigger version of it right here, and we'll make the V right here. And of course, when it comes to just brainstorming, you don't have to be real specific. I mean, you can, if you wish, get out a ruler and all that, but there's nothing that says that you have to, you know, basically make it pixel perfect on paper. All right, so I'm going to take one of my pens here and fill this in real quickly. And then beneath it, we would have the actual type, and I'm thinking about using a bolder sort of all capital U and verses. All right, so I'm not going to really sit here and draw that out. We'll go ahead and do that in the next lesson in Adobe Illustrator. But this here is the basic form that we're going to use, and I may also encase this in a circle as well. And we'll also experiment with the use of colors and make something that is appropriate and relevant to this business. All right, so I'll see you in the next lesson. All right, hello and welcome to this lesson where we're going to take this sketch from the previous lesson and make it a reality here in Adobe Illustrator. All right, so the first step, of course, is to go to File and New, and we're going to call this our U-verses name, and the width and the height. Now, when it comes to a vector graphics application such as Adobe Illustrator, the width and the height isn't too important because as long as you don't raster anything within Adobe Illustrator and everything is kept vector, you can always scale whatever you design to any size imaginable. All right, so what I'm going to use for my particular setup is 859 by 600. And so basically I'm recording this at a 1280 by 720 resolution. And so at this browser, or this size basically, I want to be able to view the document at 100% within this viewable canvas area without any vertical or horizontal scroll bars affecting the view. So for you, depending on what your desktop resolution is, you can set it whatever you need to. You can experiment and hit OK, and hit Control-1 or Command-1 on your keyboard just to see if you can view the whole canvas basically at 100%. All right, so for me, it just happens to be these numbers right here. So I have points specified, and everything else should remain the same here. And then go ahead and hit OK. By default, it has me at 96%, but to get to 100, again, it is Control-1 or Command-1 on your keyboard. All right, just like that. All right, so what we need to do first is to get the actual letter mark that we came up with on the canvas. And so when you're dealing with a logo like this, especially the form that we had with that Y and the V, it's always helpful to get out the grid. So go to View and Show Grid, and then go to View and Snap to Grid. All right, so basically, I'm not sure if you could see this, but you can see the grid right here, these individual points right here, these squares. What I want to do is take the pen tool right here, and at the foreground I have a white, in the background I have a stroke of 1 point and it's black. So to change the color, of course, on either of these, you can double click on them to go ahead and change, pick any color. Right now the color is not too important, just so we can see what's going on. I have a stroke on there. Okay, so what we need to do first is left click right on one of these points where you could tell the squares will intersect on the darker lines. So right here, I'm going to left click, and then I'm going to come down here. I'm going to hold Shift, and Shift will allow you to make a perfectly diagonal line, and then hold Shift again and come up there. All right, now the width of this, I just want it to be one of these grid blocks. So I'm going to hold Shift and left click right there. And then also we see this line coming in the center between them. And we want it to click right around there, holding Shift, hold Shift again, click, and basically connect everything. All right, so now we have the top of the Y or the V. And now we need to extend this down to basically complete the actual Y. All right, so I'm going to zoom up here. All right, so we need to keep this bottom portion of the Y in line with this line, and also end it on this line. So we definitely want enough space in here. So I'm going to make basically two of these squares long. So if I left click here, and then I hold Shift and come up over here, now we see that this one is right on this line. So if I hold Shift, oops, right there, that looks like it connects, or it's on the same path basically. And then come down here, we want it to end on this line right here. So if I hold Shift just somewhere down here and I click, we'll see that's not accurate. It needs to be right actually here. All right, and then just hold Shift, click right here, and then hold Shift once again, and then click there. That right there is our letter mark. So if I hit Control-1, we can see now that we have the actual letter mark, these two shapes, and what we can do to combine those, because right now if we look over here in the layers panel, we'll see that they are on two individual layers, but we don't need that. So what we can do is just go to Window and Pathfinder, and then just select Shape Modes under here, Unite. And that takes them and just groups them into a single basic shape. Okay, so now what I want to do is just go ahead real quick, and I'm going to make this black and get rid of the stroke. So come up here, hit 0, and then we'll change the foreground color here to black. All right. So now what I want to do is I want to encase this in an ellipse. Okay, so what we can do is left click and drag on the ellipse tool. And just so we can see the grid back here first, I want to go ahead and take transparency on this tab and just drop this to around 50%. All right, so we'll select back on the ellipse. We'll zoom up once actually before we do this. And click on the ellipse, and we'll see that there is a center point between this main grid in between here, and that is right here. If you left click and hold it, hold Shift and Alt together while doing this, we'll create a perfect circle around this. I'm going to leave it right around there and then let go. I'm going to drag it beneath. I'm going to get rid of, if we click on gradient, we'll see that currently we're selected on the fill color. What we can do is just click this in the swatches panel. And by the way, if some of these panels aren't available for you, you can go to Window and then click on them and they will become apparent. And then what we want to do is come here to stroke, and we'll give it a black color, and we'll increase that stroke size. Just right around there for now, 13 points. Now I'll hit Control 1. Okay, so let me go ahead and bring this transparency back to 100%. All right, so this is our basic shape. What I want to do now is go ahead and take the view, and hide the grid. Okay, so now what I want to do is take both of these, and I'm going to scale this down just a bit, holding Shift and Alt. Now, as you notice, when we scale down a stroke, the stroke width does not scale along with it, so it's still 13 points. So we need to determine an appropriate width for this actual ellipse here that circles this letter mark based on, will it size well, or will it scale well down, is it viewable or is it not, or is it too thick at certain sizes. So we need to come up with a certain size that will work well for whether it's large or big. So what we can do is I'm going to move this over here, taking everything, Control C and Control F, or Command C and Command F if you're on Mac, and we'll move those over holding Shift. So that way we just have, you know, what we originally created to work with. And what I'm going to do over here is, with it selected at 13 points, I'm going to go to Edit, now I'm going to Object rather, and I'm going to go to Path and Outline Stroke. Now what outline stroke does is it gets rid of the actual stroke and it converts it to an outline. So you can no longer edit that stroke. So it's going to stay this width, and it will scale down proportionally this time. So if I take both of those by left clicking and dragging, hold Shift and Alt, I'll scale down. We can see now it scales down at that appropriate proportion. And I would say that 13 points, based on the size that we started working with over here, is actually pretty good, because we could see at a smaller size it works well, and it's also working well at a larger size. Okay? All right, so now let's go ahead and get rid of the original one. And let's go ahead now. What we want to do is basically scale this up so that the left, right, top, and bottom match up evenly within a square portion here. So what I'm going to do is just scale this up. All right, so now if we look at this square right here, these are all matching up with the grid. And the reason I'm going to do it like this, actually I may move it over to the right, one grid spot, so that now we can add the actual type. All right, so the name again is uverses. I'm going to be using a font called Lato. And so what I want to do is come out roughly to right around here, and we'll make the distance one full grid over here. And I'm just going to click right around here. It doesn't really matter for now because the font size and all that isn't correct. And I'm going to change the font here to Lato. And I'm going to try bold. U versus. And this is a font that will be linked and that you can download. All right, I'm just going to hold Shift and I'm going to scale this up. All right. And I'm going to hit Control Shift and the letter O, or Command Shift and letter O on Mac. And that will convert it to outlines. All right, so now what we can do is make sure this is, as much as possible, lined up evenly in terms of, having two of these grid blocks over here and then two of the grid blocks over here. All right. Now, when it comes to scaling on the grid, sometimes it's a little difficult because we want to make it to this edge. So all we have to do is just go to View and turn off Snap to Grid, hold Shift and scale it up so that it matches up evenly. All right. So now what I want to do, I'm going to hide the grid, View and Hide Grid. And I'm going to take both of these and Shift and Alt to scale those down. And this right here would be our black and white concept. And this is what we would provide, and we will, in the visual identity guideline. And what we want to do is just take this, I'm going to hold Shift and just put it over there, hit Control C and then Control F, move this over, and now we're going to have a colorized version. All right, so if you remember, when it comes to understanding color and color psychology, obviously it plays a very important role. And so for this specific company, U versus, the idea behind it is competitive online gaming. So when it comes to competition, a color like red would work very well given its meaning. And so what I want to do is make this a red color. So in the swatches, I'm just going to click on this cmyk red over here. And I also want to create some differentiation between U and versus. So if we want to split these up, all you have to do, because right now since they were all on the same type layer, they're all on the same group, all we have to do is right click, ungroup layers. And so now we could select each one individually. And now we can just select the two words individually, versus first, hit Control G, and then U, Control G as well. So now they're on their same group. And so I want to make the verses the same color, red right here. All right, so we have our black and white version, our color version, and you can take it a step further if you wish. Control C and Control F. And we can create a version that's a little bit more dynamic by having highlights if we wish. So that's what I'll do over here. I'm going to zoom up. All right, and I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to select white for the foreground. And I'm going to come in here, left click. Now, sometimes you can hit Control Z to undo if you want to get these to line up correctly. And I'm holding Shift because remember, these are 45-degree angles. Now, I'm not going to hold Shift here. I'm just going to connect it like that. And I'm going to do the same thing on the inside of the right portion of the top of the Y. Hold Shift. All right, and then one more right here. Hold Shift. Just like that. If I Control 1, we can see now this has a little bit more finer detail. And I'm going to zoom back up real quick with the magnifying glass by left clicking and dragging. And I'm going to select this base red color. And then I'm going to come over here, double click on it, and select a darker color for a shadow. So the shadow I'm just going to have on this portion. So I'm going to click right around here, hold Shift and come down, and then come up here. And then do the same thing right here. All right. And that is basically it. So now we have our 3 different logos with their color treatments that can be specified to be used in different areas. And we'll go over that when we tackle the visual identity guideline. But before we get to that point, I want to take these, all of them, and just drag them up. And I'm going to create a black background. So I'm going to take left click, pull out, select the rectangle, and create a black rectangle. And we'll make this black right here. And I'm going to click on layers down here, or you can go to window layers. And I'm going to drag this to the bottom. So by left clicking and dragging. If you can't get quite to the bottom, just take whatever layer is beneath it and drag it up. So now it's beneath all of these layers right here, and I'm going to click right here to toggle the lock so we can't select it. Now what I want to do is take all of these by left clicking, dragging, hit Control C and then Control F to duplicate. Alright, so now we can see on a black background, obviously these left unchanged, we can't see half of it. So what we want to do, I'm just going to select up here, I know the ring is up here, we'll make this white. And then this portion and this can be white. So when we're restricted to just black or white or just one color, on a black background, this is what we would specify as being used. We'll take the U right here and the U over here by holding Shift and then making those white as well. All right, so what you want to do now is save this by going to File and Save As, so that you have this for use in the future lessons. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and construct that identity guideline. All right, I'll see you then. All right, so you want to make sure you have the document from the previous lesson open, and we want to save this as a new document. So go ahead to File, Save As. I'm going to name it identityguideline.ai and hit Save, and then hit OK. All right, so what we want to do, usually when it comes to an identity guideline of sorts, you want to first showcase the actual logo. So what we're going to do is use the full version of the logo with which has the highlights and the shadows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold Alt and just use my scroll wheel to zoom out a little bit. I'm going to take these and just move them off screen, as well as these as well. All right, so I'm also going to expand the layers here, and I'm going to get rid of this black. All right, so now we have the logo over here, and I'm going to scale that up and get that in the center roughly. And I want to also edit this artboard so that it is longer. So if we click on preferences, no, document setup, sorry, hit edit artboards, we can now adjust this so it is longer in height. And if we need to, we'll go ahead and adjust it as needed once we move on. Okay, so we have the actual logo here presented, and this is at 100% here. And what we want to do is beneath it. Now, when it's also important to realize that when it comes to these identity guidelines, there's no set sort of standard and how, what has to come next or whatever. You actually have some freedom. But when it comes to the few basic, I guess you could say, universalities between all of these are, they do include, presenting the logo in the various forms in terms of colors, a black-white version, showcasing the logo maybe on a black background, also showcasing the type faces, the preferences for that, and also a few other things. So what I'm going to do next is just show the other, like the black-white version, and then the also simple two-color version, and then also what the logo looks like on a black background. So that's what we're going to do down here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom out here, And basically, I'm going to take these two right here, and I'm going to move them right over here and also scale them down, holding Shift, and we'll leave them right around there. And also you want to make sure you have the same amount of white space as you do from the top of the logo and the bottom. And also we're going to create a rectangle here, a black rectangle. And I'm just going to come right around here and left click and drag. All right, right around there. And I'm also going to come up here to the layers and just drag this down to the bottom, just like that. All right, so I also want to take these over here real quickly, just these two, and put them right over here. Probably should have scaled those down at the same time, but that's okay. I'm going to go to 100% with Control 1. And a real quick way of doing that is if I just put that circle right there and then scale it, we'll get pretty much the same size. And then just move this over. All right. And also I kind of want to add just a very faint gray line that will separate these sections. So I'm just going to take the rectangle tool, drag it out, and then make the color just a light gray, or C9, C9, C9. And now we can actually see that. You can select it and use your keyboard arrow keys to get that in position. I'm also going to duplicate that, Control C and Control F, hold Shift and move it down right there. All right, so very simple. So now what I want to do, I want to kind of do an explanation of, you know, what this letter mark is supposed to represent. So what I'll do is take the black version, just the actual letter mark, not this circle around it, and I'll hit Control C and Control F, come down here, hold Shift and scale it up a little bit, and I'll position this first one right around here. So of course this letter mark, it represents three different things mainly. It represents the actual Y for U, the V for versus, and then the clash, that's what I'm going to call the competition mark. So we'll cover each of those three and show a way of just kind of how we can convey what these mean exactly. So if I take the type tool above this and I just put in a caps, all caps, YOU, and we'll change to Lato, and I don't want to do handline, we'll try light. All right, and what we can do is take just the O and U, and we'll make the color of those like a light gray so that it stands out, the Y, O, and U. So the Y stands out, the OU doesn't, but it lets people know this full Y is actually the Y. All right, so what we'll do now is take that, Control C and Control F, and we'll change this here. We'll just select the gray portion, ERSUS, and change the Y to a V. And we'll take this bottom one right here, this shape, and also make that the same color as the text above. So it shows just the V portion up here. Make that a little bit lighter. All right, so then what I want to do is take this over here, Control C and Control F, and move it over here. And I'm going to change this text to say competition mark. All right, so how do we show what we're trying to convey with this whole clash slash, you know, sideways V? Well, what we can do is zoom up real quick. And real quickly, I want to just make a quick adjustment on this so that we can get rid of the space in here and make this portion just a gray. So what I can do is take the pen tool right here. I'm going to come up right around here. It doesn't have to be too specific, even if there's a little bit of edge right there. Come over around here and then hit Control, Shift, and D. That will divide the object below it like that. And I will make it this color right here. And what we can do real quickly, if I zoom up here, is select this with your direct selection tool, delete it, and then just move this down slightly. And then we could take this right here, those 2 points, hold shift and move them right against it. All right, almost done. And then what we can do is take these 2 points and just simply move them up. Perfect. All right, so we're naming this the competition mark, and this is just the first part of demonstrating, where this comes from within this basic form. So I'm going to take this, Control C, Control F, just move it over here, around there somewhere, and I want to delete this, and then take both of those, Control C and Control F, right click, transform, reflect, make sure it's vertical, and hit OK. Then hold shift and just move it over right there. So this is the actual competition mark. And if I move this over here and real quickly create kind of like an arrow, just with that rectangle, and then we'll take the pen tool, shift, left click, and then shift once again. We'll have, and then basically telling me, okay, we're getting this competition, this versus, one entity against another entity from this shape right here that comes from the letter mark. All right, so now what we can do is, sometimes it's not necessary for every identity project, but you can come up with a pattern that can be used on various media, whether it be business cards or anything like that. So my idea is to come up is take both of these, hit Control G, and hit Control C and Control F to duplicate those. And we can create a sort of pattern from this competition mark. All right, so if we take that, Control C and Control F, do this a few more times real quickly, and move this over, just holding shift, Control C, Control F, all of those. And then we have an interesting sort of pattern that we can use and also deem, I'll go ahead and group those, an actual pattern that is associated with this identity. All right, so it's important to kind of define everything and give them these labels. That way, when you refer to it in the identity guideline, people understand exactly what you're talking about. All right, so I want to go ahead and take these over here and just center them in between these two right here, just so everything kind of lines up correctly. Take the dividing line, Control C and Control F, and we'll come right around here and move it, holding shift. All right, so this is what we have so far. And now what I want to do is go ahead and tackle the actual color scheme that's associated with this identity. All right, so because white is part of the identity, I want to make the background of this portion a light gray. So what we can do is take the rectangle tool and just go ahead and left click and drag out roughly to a size right around there just for now. And I may go ahead and delete that dividing line. We don't need it since we have this here. And I want to make this quite a bit lighter, right around there. All right, so now what we want to do is go ahead and just take the rectangle tool and specify blocks that will serve as our color palette basically. And we will adjust this as needed based on the colors. So we have black here that we're definitely is associated with this brand. So Control C and Control F and just hold shift and left click and drag and move it over. And the next color would of course be a red right there. Control C, Control F. And another color would be our actual darker portion when it comes to the shadow. Let me zoom out there. All right. And then Control C and Control F, and then finally we have white. All right, so Control 1. And let's go ahead and select all those and just scale it up as needed. All right. So now what's typical is to specify the actual color codes that are represented, that are associated with each color basically. And you could do that for RGB, CMYK, and even Pantone. We're just going to cover the RGB and CMYK for this. So when it comes to black, let's go ahead and select our type tool, and we can just go ahead and put in RGB and then enter, and we can put in the color code of 000000, 6 zeros, and we can make this one a little bit bigger for the actual value, say right around there. Okay. And then we can also come down here and put in CMYK. Oops. 1 second. Let me take this top portion, just copy both of those lines of text, and then CMYK. And if you want to know the CMYK color value for anything, just click on it. So we have the color here in the fill. Double click and you'll see C, M, Y, and K, and these are percentage values. And you can put just 0, 0, 0, and 100. So what we can do is 0, 0, 0, just like that. Control C, Control F. We'll move this over, and we'll go ahead and get the RGB value of this color. It's 237.28 by 36. Oops, I'm sorry, we're not doing it that way. Right, color code's right there. I was gonna do R, G, and B, but I'm not. Okay, so we'll just take that and copy it. And then also, oops, come back down here. And this is 0, 1, 1, 100, 100, 0. Very simple. Control C and Control F. And click on this. Get the color code there. See if I can also remember this. 20, 100, 112. Okay. So go ahead and take that. I think that's right. And then Control C, Control F a final time. This I just know offhand is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Fs. And this is all 0. So 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay. So now let's go ahead and I'm going to select everything, and then hold Shift and select the background because we don't want that. And we can just use your arrow keys if you want to get this aligned correctly, vertically. All right, so let me go ahead and zoom out. So far, so good. And the other thing that we have to worry about is the actual type, the typeface information. And when it comes to the typefaces, usually you have a primary typeface, and you can also have secondary typefaces, although it's not required or anything. This is open to, obviously, interpretation in terms of how you want to construct it. So for our primary typeface is going to be the Lato, or Lato. And so what we'll do is just put in here is A, oops, and then B, B, C, C, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this will give us a good idea of what this typeface looks like. And you can also specify varying weights if you wish. I'm gonna leave this at, actually I'm gonna go ahead and leave this at hairline for now. And I'm gonna come down here, I'm gonna Control C and Control F that, and I'm gonna put in primary typeface, and we'll name it Lato. Make this light. Make this one bold here. All right, and We can also go ahead and put in the varying weights and also some lorem ipsum text just to show what it kind of looks like in the context of a paragraph. All right, so what we can do is if we click on this, we'll have, let's see here. There we go. We have different things. We have a hairline, light, regular, bold, and black. We can just stick with light, regular, bold, and black and showing those. So if I come down here and I put in light, although that's not light, that's the bold one right there. And then if you go to a site, ellipsum.com, you can just go ahead and scroll down a little bit. You can grab some text right here, and we'll take the type tool, and I'll come out right around here, left click and drag, and just paste that in. And we'll make this smaller here. Let's try, actually let's try, yeah, we'll try 14. All right, and you know what? We don't need that full amount of text. I'd say maybe right here I can get rid of that. And we'll shrink that a little bit. So that's light. And then this will be, I think they have regular next. Yep. And we'll change that to regular. Change this to regular. And we have 2 more to do, so I'll just take both of those. You can go back to document setup, edit artboards, drag this down. Oops, nope. Drag that down quite a bit more. And we'll change this here to bold. Oops, Control A, bold. And make that actually bold. Do the same thing here. And then this one finally will be black. Change that to black, and change that to black. Oop, black, there we go. All right, very simple. All right, and I'm gonna go ahead and just delete this one. All right, so that is basically it just for the time being for this identity guideline. So in the next lesson, what we're gonna do is go ahead and design a business card and also tackle a Facebook page that applies all this information as it needs to be for that design. And then we'll come back and we'll add both of those kind of just as graphics and previews inside of this identity guideline at the end of this chapter in this project. All right, so I will see you then. All right, so in this lesson, we're gonna go ahead and design a front and back business card. And for the first time, apply the visual identity, the logo, and everything else here that we set forth in this identity guideline to an actual project. So a business card, of course, is one of the most basic forms of applying a visual identity for a company. So go ahead and open up from the project files, the card.ai file. All right, so if I hit Control 1, we'll get to 100%. And I'm going to zoom up a little more just so we can see it a little bit better. So if I go real quick over here to View and Guides, Show Guides, and you can see the shortcut key right here, which I'm going to use from now on, which is Control and a semicolon. We'll have the actual guides here. So there's a few things that you need to understand when it comes basically to print design. So out here, this red line, that's what you called the bleed. So the space between this black line and this red line is what's called the bleed. Now the bleed is basically any type of background elements that need to be included on the very, all the way to the edge of the card need to be included out to this area. And then you have the trim. This black line is a trim, and the trim is basically where the printers, whoever's printing them, will attempt to cut the card. All right, so obviously when it comes to background elements, well, that's why they need to extend beyond this trim line, just so nothing gets cut off. And then inside of these guides that we have here, this is the safe zone. So if it comes to like real important elements such as text or the logo, you want to make sure they're well inside so that they don't run the risk of getting cut off. All right, very simple. So I'm going to switch over here and I'm going to grab this logo right here. And I'm gonna hit Control C. I'm gonna switch back and then hit Control V to paste this in. I'm gonna hit Shift and left click, drag down to scale. Now when it comes to business card design, obviously it's one of those things where there's no right or wrong way to design. So I'm just gonna take a certain approach to this and just get on the necessary pieces of content that would be required for a business card. So as you can see here, we're just going to do a more not so traditional sort of card layout. I'm going to feature the logo over here on this side, and I'm going to scale it down just a little bit more. And underneath it will be the web address, and then to the right of it, I'm going to have a black section where the 3 pieces of information will go, which is the company's CEO name, John Doe, a phone number, and then an email address. All right, so what I want to do is go ahead and take the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to start up here, left click and drag right to those edges, and I'm going to make it black. All right, very simple. And now I'm going to expand the layers and lock it so we can't select it. Okay, so now what I want to do is on top of this is add the pattern that's associated with this identity. So if we recall, we could scroll down here, and this is a pattern that we have. So Control C, and then we'll go ahead and Control V to paste that in. And I'm going to right click and ungroup that temporarily. I'm going to move these down and just select these bottom portions right there. And hit up, oops, along with this one as well, on the arrow key to make sure they're flush up against each other. So now I'm going to select all of them again and hit Control G to group them. Okay, so I'm also going to change the color because it's going to be black on black, so I want it to be slightly lighter so that we can see it. Say around 212121 on the hex color code. All right, so I'm going to hold Shift to scale that down, and we want to make sure these go all the way to the bottom because this is a background element, so it'll go past this trim zone. And if it goes beyond this area, that doesn't matter either. That's okay. So right around there. Okay, so now what I want to do is take those, Control C and Control F. I'm going to zoom up real quick, and I'm just going to move them and try to tile them real quickly on top of each other. So I'm going to take both of those, hold Shift, and then hit Control G to group those. Control C and Control F again, and we'll do this. Control G one more time, and then Control C and Control F. And move that down one, right around there. Okay, so now I want to go ahead and add some text on top of this. And this will be white text using the primary typeface of Lato. And so we'll take the type tool, and I'm going to lock both of those layers right here. And I'm going to type in John Doe, and the text is black right now, we'll change that, and then CEO beneath it by hitting enter. So now I want to make that white, and also change to Lato, and make it light. We're going to make this bold, the actual CEO part, and make it smaller as well. So if I select the Move tool, scale these down, right around there. Take just the CEO portion, and we'll try making this around 6. And that works. Then I'm going to do Control C, Control F, hold Shift, and left click and drag right around here. This is where the phone number is going to go. So I'll put 555 555 5555, and this is going to be cell. And then we'll take this one, Control C, Control F again, hold Shift, left click, drag down right around here, and we'll make this me@uversus.com. And this will be changed to email. And then finally, I'll take this, Control C, Control F. We'll move it over here near the center. We'll make it black. We'll get rid of the email portion. And then we'll make this www.uversus.com. And I might make it a little bit smaller. Yeah, that's good. All right. All right, so now let me go ahead and zoom out just a little bit just so we can see it. If you want to hide the guides, the shortcut is Control or Command if you're on Mac, Control and semicolon. Okay. And real quickly, I do want to get rid of that top portion. Just right around there. And Control Shift in the letter O. Oops, those have to be unlocked first. Actually, or you can go to Object, just Path, Divide Objects below. I had the wrong shortcut by accident. Sorry about that. It's Control Shift and D, I meant. And delete those just right around there because I don't want them going too high. All right, so that would be the front of the business card. And you want to go ahead and save this as front, no outlines. And I say no outlines because we're maintaining this text. I always like to do that when it comes to business card, just in case if in the future you need to create more or you need to edit the text. But whenever you do send these off to get printed, they have to be converted to outlines. So let's save this again. We'll call this front-outlines. Hit OK. And then we'll take all of our bits of text, or just everything, Control Shift and O. And that will convert it to outlines. It's the same thing as going to Object, Path, and going to Object and Expand Appearance. All right, so now what we want to do is create a back version. So we'll save this, and then we'll file Save As. We'll just call this back. And the back is not going to have any text, so we don't have to worry about the outline issue. So delete that. Oops. We'll delete that. And all of this. And then we'll unlock that black portion. We'll extend this all the way. And then we'll take these two pieces and group them. Control G, Control C, Control F. Move them over. Adjust as needed. And I'll also take these and with the direct selection tool and delete those. And then I want to come over here. We'll come back and just grab the white Y letter mark. Control C. And then we'll Control V and we'll scale this up a bit. I'd say right around there. And then you can use the align to horizontal and also vertical right here. All right. And that is it. So save that. All right. And then in another lesson, we'll come back and to these business cards, and we'll work with them in a Photoshop a little bit to create a cool 3D preview perspective of the cards, and then bring them over here into this identity guideline. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to do the second project when it comes to, not the project rather, but applying this identity guideline to an actual project. And this would be designing a Facebook page using this identity guideline for uversus. All right, so I'll see you then. All right, so go ahead and make sure you have Facebook template.psd opened up. This is something I created that is reflective of the current specifications from Facebook pages. And so if you're watching this and down the line somehow, they've changed it, which they likely will, just go ahead and do a quick Google search on and do something like for Facebook page specifications, and they'll tell you whatever specifics they need to be for like a cover photo or whatever else they decide to change or add or remove. So as it stands currently, there's just a cover photo. It's 851 by 315, and then a profile photo, which is displayed at 160 by 160, but you can upload as 180 by 180. All right, so what we want to do is switch back to Adobe Illustrator and make sure you have the back.ai open from the previous lesson business card. And we want to just export, or just basically export this pattern right here. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. I'm going to try just taking both of these. I'm going to group them, and then I'm going to hit Control-C to copy them. All right, so I'm going to come back to Photoshop, and for the cover photo, which is this layer right here, I'm going to double click and make that black, and then hide that dimensions group. And so if I hit Control-V, paste, I'm going to use Smart Object. That way we can scale this up holding Shift. I'd say right around there. Select the Move tool and hit Place. Right click and click on Create Clipping Mask. So that makes it stay inside of this black portion. And then I also want to duplicate that, Control Shift and D, or right click and duplicate the layer. Move it over holding Shift. All right, right around there. Hit Control E and select both of those and merge them. All right, so that looks pretty good. And now what I want to do is take the profile picture, and I'm going to double click on that to change it from that gray to white. And I'm going to go to File, New, choose 180 by 180. We're going to fill it in with white. And I'm going to come back to Adobe Illustrator, and we're going to take our logo right here and Control-C to copy that. We'll go back to Photoshop, Control-V, and Smart Object, hit OK. Shift and Alt to scale that down a little bit with Control-T, and then select the Move tool and hit Place. All right, so very simple as you see. I'm going to take this, right click and rasterize that, Control-A, then Control-C, just the Smart Object layer, and then I'm going to hit Control-V and just move it over here, scale it down, Control-T, Shift and Alt, and left click and drag down just a little bit. That way it gives us somewhat of a preview of what that will look like, because it does scale it down from 180 by 180 to 160 by 160. All right, so now I want to add a final element over here. It's just kind of bland. Sometimes you can add text, although you should kind of try to stay away from adding text as much as possible, because at different basically cell phones or whatever, it'll cut off a lot of it and it won't look good on different devices. So just keeping it general in design is usually the best bet. So I'm going to come back over here, and we're going to open up the U versus AI file from the logo design lesson, and I'm going to select this one right here. Actually, I'm just going to take only the letter mark in the circle. Control-C rather, to copy it, and we'll click just on top of the cover photo layer, and Control-V, make sure this is Smart Object, and hit OK. And we're going to increase this quite a bit, let's say right around there. Select the Move tool, hit Place, and we'll drag it above that. Take both of those, right click, and create clipping mask right there. And then you can move this however you want. Oops. Select the Move tool. I think right there looks pretty good. And that is it. So now what we would do is come back over here. We're going to save this for the web. So File, Save for Web, or Alt, Control, Shift, and S, which is what I usually do. And we can see it's 180 by 180. We'll save it, and I'm going to name this profile.jpg. I've already did it once before, just before recording this. And then we'll take cover photo. We'll hide the profile picture layer. Hold Control and left click. Go to Edit and Copy Merged. Now, what's different between Edit Copy or Control-C between Copy Merged means whatever is within this area, it doesn't matter what layer it's on or what layer you have selected, it will get copied. It's kind of like screenshotting whatever's inside that area that's selected. So we'll go to File, New, Control-V to paste, and we'll go ahead and save that for the web, and we'll name this Cover and hit Replace. All right, so I went ahead and already uploaded this from the first time I recorded before doing this video, and this is basically what it looks like. Yeah, works out well. So that is it. So Now what we're going to do in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and take the business card front and back along with the Facebook page that we just designed and incorporate it into our identity guideline amongst these different things that we have going on here. All right, so I will see you then. All right, so what I want to do here in Photoshop, I'm going to go ahead to File, New, and we're going to specify 859 by 600 pixels, 72 resolution. Hit enter. We're going to fill in the background with a light gray. So EA is the color code. And fill it in. And before I import the business cards, I want to make a quick adjustment. So I'm going to open those up. So we have front outlines and also back. And these were a little bit too dark, the actual pattern. So I changed it just to this color, and that cmyk is 00090. And I'm going to go ahead and save that. And I already did the same thing with these colors before I recorded. So yeah, just make sure you make that change. And then once you have that ready to go, you can go ahead back to Photoshop. We're going to go to File, Open. And, oops, not new. Sorry about that. We're going to go to Open, and we're going to specify front outlines and back. Hit Open, and leave it at 300 for each one. All right. And this is including the bleed. So what we need to do is specify with the rectangular marquee tool fixed size and choose 1050 pixels by 600. And what that is the 3.5 by 2 inches at a 300 resolution, and that's the amount of pixels that that specific size is. So if you left click once, it gives you the actual cut size of the business card. All right, so you don't have to be perfect in the alignment, just so it's somewhere around, you know, where it would be is good. So Control C, come back to the original document that we filled in with a light gray, and Control V, and then we will also come back here, do the same thing, and Control C, and then Control V. Now these little lines in here, that was an issue that when I was duplicating or replicating those. Not a big deal, it's not a real project, but that's something to keep in mind. Make sure that you push those down enough. But we're going to be scaling these down, so they shouldn't be noticeable anyways. All right, so take both of those layers. I'm going to rename this one to front and this one here to back. And take both of those holding Shift. And oh, before we do that, right click on the front, convert to Smart Object. Right click on the back, convert to Smart Object as well. Take both of those, we're going to scale this down. Control T, hold Shift. Somewhere right around there. Select the Move tool, hit Apply. And we'll take the back layer, move it over here. We'll take the front, I'm going to zoom up a little bit. And the front, I want to duplicate that. So right click and duplicate the layer over here, or set the hotkey, and that's Control Shift and D. And hit OK. And I'm going to hit Control T and then just skew this a little bit, or rotate it rather. Select Move tool, hit a place. And I also want to make it a little bit darker, the background one. So we can double click on that, and we can choose Color Overlay. And I'm going to make this black, but I'm going to take the opacity down. Right around there. Hit OK. Just so we can see it's a little bit darker. And if you wish, you can do it a third time, selecting the one at the bottom, just like that. And go back to color overlay on this one and make it a little bit darker. All right. And then we can also do the same thing here with the back version. Oops, sorry. If you hit Control, if you hold Control or Command on your computer, you can, or your keyboard, you can left click and just automatically select that layer. And you can do the same thing that we did up here. I'm going to try experiment with this a little bit and try to make it look like it's kind of laying on top of the front of the business cards. So you have all these tools. If you go to Edit, Transform, you can skew it, you can put a perspective on it. But it's best to kind of leave these things, try not to skew it too much or distort them too much, or it won't look really real. So if I hit skew, maybe move this up, hit place, Control T, hit place. All right, and then what we can do is add some shadows here to make this look a little bit more realistic. So if we take all of our layers, move these to the center, hit Control T, we'll scale them up. Maybe right on that size, holding Shift and Alt, hit apply. And because these are smart object layers, we can scale up without quality loss. So just a tip there. And okay, beneath all this stuff, I'm going to hit Control Shift and N, hit OK for a new layer. And I'm going to go ahead and use the pen tool, and we're going to use a darker color and make sure shape is specified. I don't want a stroke. And starting out right around here, I'm going to click once and up there once, come down over here, just like that. Now I know you're thinking, okay, well, what is that? That doesn't look like. But we'll right click and we'll rasterize that. And we can go to Filter, Blur, and Gaussian Blur. And maybe right around there is okay. And then we can take down the opacity quite a bit, or a little bit. And that way it looks like there's a shadow briefly on there. And then also our top layer, we can hit Control Shift and N and make it a clipping mask. Hit OK. We'll take the brush tool and we'll make it black. And let me get that on that feather brush a little bit more the size. And come down there like that, and maybe take the opacity down just a little bit. That way we have a little bit of shadow right there. All right. All right, yeah, and that's a pretty decent presentation of the business cards. So what we want to do is we'll save this. So Control S, and we'll go ahead and move that to the correct project. And I paused and went to the correct folder, and I'm just going to name this Present Business Cards. We'll save that. And then what I want to do is close out all of this. And I also want to go to I have Facebook up here with the Facebook design for the page. And so I'm just going to screenshot this specific page. So I'm just going to hit Alt and print screen. And of course, you know, if you wanted to, you could have created your own page as well on Facebook. It's very easy. Just use Google and just type in Facebook create a page, and it'll take you right to the page to create. That way you can experiment with this. And so we'll go back to Photoshop and Control N, hit enter, Control V to paste, and we'll get just the portion. Oops, make sure that's normal. Just the portion where actually, you know what? We could include Facebook, this bar at the top, if we wish. And right around there should be okay. All right. Control N for a new document. Paste that in. All right, so now if we switch back to Adobe Illustrator and we open up the identity guideline. Now this is where we can put in our previews here for the actual business card presentation that we did. So I'm going to open that back up real quick. And it's right there. Control A, edit, copy, merged, and then paste this in here. All right. And also we'll go ahead to document setup and edit the artboards and pull this down. Right around there. All right, let's look and see what this looks like so far. All right. And then we'll come back here. All right. And I want to take this and go to File, New real quickly. And we're going to use 859 by, we'll try 600 again. And I'm going to take this, copy that, Control A, Control C, paste it in. And I'm going to Control T to scale that down. hit apply, and then also I'm going to create a new layer, Control-Shift-N, enter. Take the gradient tool, make it white. Make sure it is this one right here, that's foreground to transparent. Start right here at the bottom, hold Shift and go up right around there. All right, and edit, copy merged, and go back to Adobe Illustrator, paste that in right around there. All right. Okay, so what you would do basically for a real actual visual identity project is go ahead and keep on applying this identity to other mediums using the same techniques that we did. Obviously, we just tackled a business card design and then also a social media design as well. But there's obviously a lot of other ones, letterheads, you know, just a lot of other things that you can do, and then ultimately integrate into the visual identity. And yeah, that is it for this project. All right, so in the next project, we're going to go ahead and get started with a second visual identity design. All right, I'll see you then. Hello and welcome to the second follow-along project, and the name of this fictional company is Cutcake. So not cupcake as a P, take that P and change it to a T, and we have Cutcake. So what is it? Basically, it is a fitness nutritional company that takes food items that are commonly associated as being unhealthy, like a cupcake, except making them much more nutritional and healthier. All right, so our job as visual identity designers is to first come up with a logo that is relevant and unique to this business, and then provide a full visual identity. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and start brainstorming and sketching an idea for this company. All right, welcome to this lesson where we're going to focus on sketching out a concept for the fictional company Cutcake. So just to reiterate, Cutcake is a fitness nutritional company, and the idea is to provide typically foods that are unhealthy in a healthy manner. So such as it is, we have Cutcake, and the idea is taking that T, changing it to a P, and taking cupcake and making it cupcake, as in you can have your cupcake, you know, of course, and also be able to maintain a healthy lifestyle. All right, so instead of taking the route of a letter mark this time, we're going to do an actual unique symbol. And so the idea that I came up with, I was sketching out basically just you know, a general form of a cupcake. So if you think of a cupcake, typically it looks something like this. And I'll just make this real quick if I can. And this would be, for instance, the icing on the top, and then the cup portion below. All right, so how can we take something like that and turn it into an actual relevant symbol that has some type of nutritional meaning to it? So the idea I had is to take this basic form at the top. So we're going to forget about the bottom portion. And so basically we have three different dimensions here. And you know, whenever you have a cupcake, you usually have the icing, and if some people can really pack it on there, but this is the general idea. So we have the three portions right here. So one thing that is generally associated with losing weight is fitness equipment or steps. So I thought of the idea of taking these and trying to represent them in the idea of steps, or step aerobics, for example. And it will also have the meaning of cutting in a way that I portray these steps. So we want it to look kind of like a cupcake, and we also want it to look like steps, and we also want them to look as though they're cutting. So the idea that I had was to basically come up with the following shape right here. So we have the top portion, which would emulate the smaller over here, and come down here, and come up a little bit, just like right there, and then the last portion right around here. Alright, so if you can see, in a way, there is a similarity between the top portion of this cupcake and these steps, sort of. So let me real quickly, just so we can see it better, go ahead and fill that in with the pen. And there you have it. Basically, as I mentioned before, it has the same idea as kind of iterating steps and also representing slightly, if you look at it from a general perspective, the actual cupcake. And so my idea for the type is to have the cut cake underneath it. And for the colors, we're going to experiment as well in Adobe Illustrator in the next lesson. Alright, so I will see you then. Alright, welcome to this lesson. We're going to go ahead and make the cut cake logo design a reality here in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to go to File, New. I'm going to make the name Cut Cake and go ahead and make sure width and height are 859 by 600 points and hit OK. Control 1 will get us at 100%, and we'll go ahead over here to View, Show Grid, View and Snap to Grid, and make sure we have the pen tool out, and I'm going to left click once over here, and I'll make it about 3 grid blocks across, holding Shift, and then coming up 1 grid block and then connecting it. Alright, so now I'm going to zoom up here a little bit, and I want to Control C and then Control F that. I'm going to move it up just right around here, and I'm going to right click it, transform, scale, and I'm going to try around 66%, which is 1/3, and then hit OK. Alright, Control C, Control F, and we'll do the same thing up here. Right click, transform, scale, and leave that there. Alright, so now what I want to do is I want to drag this down so that this point touches this slant, and roughly the same area right here. And I'm going to go ahead and go to View and turn off Snap to Point. That way I can get up closer here, and I'm able to adjust this with my up and down arrow keys so that's more in line with this. Alright, and now what I want to do is, real quickly, I'm just going to give them their colors. This first one, for the color, I'm going to make it more on the feminine side, since the target demographic is going to be females for this. And I'm going to make this here pink. I'm going to get rid of the stroke as well. Coming over here, gradient stroke, and getting rid of that. Alright, and real quickly, I'm going to take both of those by holding Shift and left clicking them. Take the eyedropper tool and make those the same color. That way I can get rid of the stroke real quick. Each of these are also going to be different colors though. So I'm going to make this color right here. Oops, make sure we switch to the fill mode. And I'm going to make it this blue right here, and then this green right there. Alright, and what I want to do now is I want to take this initial triangle, and I'm going to go to layers here just so we can get this viewable. Hit Control C and then Control F. Now I'm going to take the bottom one and I'm going to make it white. And then I'm going to use my arrow keys, my up arrow key on my keyboard. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And I'm going to take the blue one and drag it beneath. Now I want to come out here just to see what that looks like. And I'm going to temporarily scale this down. So I moved that up 14 times basically. I want to remember that. And that looks like it's pretty good. I think I might want to go a little bit higher. So 14, that'd be 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. We'll just make it an even 20. And then what we want to do is the same thing for this one. So Control C, Control F, and I'll make the bottom one white again. We're going to take the top one over here and drag that to the very bottom, and then move this up 20 times basically. So and I'm going to make it white. It got that little gray color there for the grid, from the grid. All right, so we're at 100% here, view, and I'm going to go ahead to view and hide grid, and I want to see what this looks like when I scale this down. All right, still pretty viewable. I may want to take this one and scale it in just a little bit more. So what I can do is hold Alt and left click and drag. That way it kind of comes in a little bit more, and same thing with this. All right, that's a little bit better in my opinion. All right, so now what I want to do is go ahead and use the Pathfinder. So go Window and Pathfinder, and basically you can't leave this as a white shape and then just export it and save it, because otherwise if you do that, this won't be transparent. So if you use it on a different color background, anything other than pure white, then you're going to see these shapes in here. So the way you combat that problem is by taking this white portion that you don't see, hold Shift and select the green one right there, and then you click on this minus front. So now you can't select that front shape anymore. Do the same thing right here. All right, and then finally, we want to roughen this up a little bit so that it doesn't seem so, I guess you could say, straight-edged. So what we can do, I want to take all of these, I'm going to group them, Control G or Command G, and just so I have a reference real quick, I'm going to move this over here, hit Control C and then Control F, and move that one over to the right by holding Shift. And what I can do is take a tool over here, and this is going to be called the wrinkle tool. All right, so here's what happens when you have that. If we select our group right here, and we select back on a wrinkle tool, we can see that, and if you hit Control H, you can get rid of the outline. You see that it really just does some sort of random wrinkle effect. Now, we don't want ours to be quite that dramatic. So if you double click on it, it will bring up options over here. All right, so the intensity is one of the ways that you can basically really decrease or increase that roughen effect. So I'm going to change this to 10, and I'm going to hit OK, and then see what happens when I do this. All right, so basically it's a little bit better. You can tell it's rough, but it's not so much to the point which you can't discern what the shape is in and of itself. Okay, so I'm going to save this. I'm just going to hide it though, so it's out of view. All right, so this is going to be our basic icon for the Cut Cake logo. So now what we need to do is to get the actual type in here as well. So if I go to View and Show Grid, I want to scale this up, or move this rather, so that it is in the, basically it is 3 grids blocks long from here to here, just so we have a general point of reference for our type. And I'm going to take the type tool, and I'm just going to click down here randomly somewhere, and I'm going to type in our name, Cut Cake. All right, I'm going to scale this up by holding Shift, and I'm going to change the font here to something called Prosto 1 or Prosto 1. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. All right. Right around there. I'm going to hit Control, Shift, and O, the letter O, and I'm going to make an adjustment here to the K. Now, if I zoom up here, I don't necessarily like how the K is extending in here, and I can also do something a little bit different and something unique to the logo by kind of cutting this portion out and getting rid of that, and then also a little bit of a treatment, which we'll get into after we cut this out. All right, so what I want to do is I'm going to zoom up here quite a bit, and I also want to right click and I want to ungroup so that we can just select our text layer here, hit Control or Command H so we can view the actual points here. And what I'm going to do is take the pen tool and I'm going to come just right where this line would begin to start. And I'm going to click right around. You may have to hit Control Z a few times. Yeah, here's what I'll do. Let's go right around there. Take the direct selection tool up here. Select on this middle portion. You want to get this lined up so that, and we can change it to a different color and then change the transparency just to make things a little bit easier to 50%, just so we can get this kind of lined up correctly. Right around there. And right around there is pretty good. If they're not perfect, it's okay for now. Left click on this top point and then connect it to this bottom. Actually, I'm going to undo that. Control Z. I'm going to come out here and then come right down there and connect it. That way it goes around this entire portion. And then I'm going to go to Object, Path, Divide Object below. What that does is cut out the shape right there. So what I can do, if I select with a direct selection tool, just these 3 points, holding Shift and left clicking, I can hit Delete. And then you can see we have an issue right here, which we can also fix by getting rid of that point. We'll go ahead and take the pen tool and connect those. Take the direct selection tool again and get rid of that point. Clicking on these and connecting those up. All right, so I hit Control 1. So now, if I take this and I move it over, roughly, I would say, right around here, I hit Control C and then Control F to duplicate that. Select the bottom one, take the eyedropper tool and select white, and then move it over with your left arrow key a couple times. Hit Control 1. We can basically take this idea with this arrow that's cutting into the K, and that's just a unique treatment on the type that is relevant to the idea of, cutting or losing weight. Okay, so now if we take all these, oh yeah, real quick, we definitely want to come over here, select this and that layer, go to Window, Pathfinder, and then minus the front. Okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and scale this up so that this is of a more even proportion or centered up in relation to the actual symbol. And I think that right there, may want to move it up just a little bit. And then take the cake portion and we'll make it this same color right here, which is the dominant feminine color. All right, so now let's go ahead and hit Control G, and now all those are on their own layer. I'm going to hold Shift and Alt just to scale this down a little bit. Control C, Control F, and move these over. Take both of them and get them into the line a little bit. This one right here can be black, and we have a colored version here. And then we can also go ahead real quickly. I'm going to go to Window and hide, or View rather, hide the grid. And we'll get the black out here. And I'll drop this to the bottom. We'll lock it. Take these two. Control C, Control F, and we'll make this all white. And this oops. And we'll take the direct selection tool, select around where the cut would be, and just make that white. And there we go. All right, so that concludes this lesson. In the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and construct a visual identity guideline for this fictional company. Make sure you save your file, though, here as an AI. All right, I'll see you in the next lesson. All right, so what we want to do is open up the identity guideline from the previous project, and we're going to use this as a basic outline or a template for this project and also the third project as well. So what we want to do now is open up the logo that we created in the previous lesson, and I've paused and opened mine up here. And what we want to do is take this version, the color version, and I'm going to remove this and paste this up here. Shift and Alt just to scale this up a bit. All right, and I'm also going to group it, Control G. And then I'm going to get rid of these over here. Oops. Let me select that and lock that layer. And get rid of those. Also, make sure you save this in a new folder. You don't overwrite the other one if you wish to keep that. And let's go back here. And we want to get this. Paste that over here. Oops, sorry about that. And also come over here and take these two. And I'm going to scale both of these down equally, so hold Shift with that move tool right around there. And then select this one, we can position it over here. This one we can scale down as well. Yeah, right around the same size. All right, so now we have a preview of the different colors and the different variations of the logo. And now we can do an explanation down here about the actual cupcake. So what I want to do is take all these and just remove them. All right. And so yeah, we could take the this version, the black and white version, that's the one that sticks out the most, and copy that by Control C, Control F, hold Shift and bring it down. And we can also get rid of the type. So if we select it, right click and ungroup, get rid of the type right here. And we can basically begin to describe what's happening here in the symbol. All right, so what I can do is we can zoom up here just a little bit, and I'm going to take the pen tool and I'm going to real quickly just design a sort of a cupcake, kind of like how I did in the sketching process. And I'm just holding Alt when I do that and left clicking to get rid of the anchor point. And let me back up here a little bit. There you go, Alt left click. Come out there around there. And I'm going to be adjusting these a little bit. Moving these over here just with the direct selection tool. And I'm going to just make this an outline, so I'm going to get rid of that for the fill and then switch to the stroke. Give it a 1-point stroke and also make it gray. All right. Okay, so if I hit Control 1, All right, we can see a very quick, you might want to refine that more if it's a real project, but this is the idea behind it, is a cupcake, and you could illustrate it, but I'm not going to. What I'm going to do is just put in stairs, ascending, cutting. All right. All right, so let's get this into position here. Move this over there. All right. All right, so now we can also specify a color scheme. And so what we'll do, I'm going to take all these, Control C, paste that right there and scale this down just temporarily. We'll remove it once we're done. And we'll go ahead and put in the actual color scheme. So I'm going to take that layer right there and lock that so we can't select it. And I'm going to leave the black here. This is going to change to this color. This will change to the blue. This will change to a green. Just like that. All right, so now we have to update these values to reflect these actual color codes. So if we select this, color code is right there. Just Control C to copy it. And then if we select it again, come back, we have 0, 100, 0, 0. So we'll just take out this, make that a 0. The blue, get that color code. And click on it again, 70, 15, 0, 0. All right, just like that. And then finally the green, we'll select that, copy the color code, paste that in, and it is 50, 0, 100, 0. All right, now that tackles that issue, and now we'll make the primary typeface, and we'll go ahead and specify for these. Let's do 1. All right, and also all right, so when it comes to this font, we just have a regular version, so all we have to do is just delete this and take both of these. And for this, it would be worth having a secondary typeface when you're not able to use these, but that's okay. So yeah, now what we'll do, I'm going to get rid of these at the bottom here, just by deleting them. And now we want to go ahead and save this. And so that completes the identity guideline for our second project. So now in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and do a business card design applying this identity for Cupcake. All right, I'll see you then. Okay, so in this lesson, we're going to go ahead and do the business card for Cupcake. So make sure you have the identity guideline open for Cupcake, as well as the card.ai file, which is a blank card. All right, so first thing, we're going to take the main logo here and copy that with Control C and then Control V to paste that in. And then I'm going to zoom up here a couple times and also select our logo here and scale that down. And again, if you want to view the guides, all you have to do is hit Control or Command on Mac and the semicolon key, just like that. All right, so for this design, we're going to do something a little bit different than the first project, because remember, there is no, absolute right or wrong way when it comes to business card design. So you can just experiment with it and see how it looks. So if you ever want to center something in the center of a document, we have these little controls up here. You can do it horizontally and vertically. So we don't want to do it vertically because it'll be too much in the center and you won't be able to put any content around it, but we can do it horizontally right there. All right, so when it comes to the design of this, I just came up with a way to really reinforce the identity colors, and that is just to do this real quick. So I'm going to take this, Control C and then Control F, and I'm going to get rid of the type. I'm going to right click and ungroup it, and that way I can take the type and just hit delete. And I'm going to scale this up a little bit. And what I wanted to do is create some straight lines, because these, we applied that roughen tool to it, so I don't want that necessarily. And I want to make these lines kind of come in from the side like this, and I want them to be in the same angle as these 3 slashes. So what I could do is, real quickly, I'm going to right click and ungroup those, and we'll get our green color first, and I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm just going to start off at the side over here and then come down roughly the same angle as this portion. And then what I'll do is go ahead, hit shift and connect that together. All right, so now I can go ahead and get rid of the logo beneath it. And so if I just move this out of the way real quick, I can get rid of those and then just move this up roughly right around here. I may increase the scale just a tad bit. Control C and Control F and move it down. This one will be the blue, and then this one right here, we'll move that down as well, and that could be the pink color. All right, so now what I want to do is go ahead, I'm going to get rid of the guide, so Control and semicolon, and so I'm going to take the rectangle tool and come out just to the bottom of the document, roughly right there. Control Shift and D will divide those objects below, and I can remove those with the direct selection tool. Just doing that, hitting delete twice, and then do the same thing over here to the right, coming just right there. Control Shift and D, take the direct selection tool, select just the right portion, hit delete. All right, so basically this just gives us some color, some design, and form to the actual card. So, you know, again, a lot of this is just all about experimenting. And if we bring back our guides, we'll see that this will be the actual cut portion. So we'll have enough of each color to make an impact here. So now what I want to do is add the actual information. So I'll go ahead with the type tool. And if you recall, we'll switch back to this identity guideline, and the primary typeface is Prosto 1. And so I'll come over here and I will put a name, and I'll switch here to the font, and what I might do is make them all caps. I'll scale this down right around there, and I will put the next piece of information, which we can put a email. So we'll put john@cutcake.com. And also a phone number. Like that. And then finally, we can also put a web address. All right, so we have our 4 bits of text here, and I'm going to line them just like that. That will seem pretty good. And to give this a little bit of color, I'm going to take that and make that name right there the actual primary pink color, and that is it. So that will take care of the front card of the Cupcake business card. And I'm going to go ahead and make sure you save that. And I've called that front, and we can also take everything, Control Shift and O to convert it to outlines, and then save this again and call this front no outlines. And hit OK. All right, so let's go ahead and save this as back. And then what we'll do now is I'm going to take it a different direction. And what I'll do is I get rid of the type and also get rid of these over there. And I'm going to hit Control and semicolon to get rid of those. We don't need them. And I'm going to ungroup those, get rid of the type, and I'm going to ungroup those. Actually, I'll leave those the same right real quick. I'm going to get the color, the primary color here in the foreground, and I'm going to get the rectangle tool and put it right there, and then drag this here to the bottom. Click on our icon, and this time we could center it vertically and horizontally. Roughly just like that. All right, and that will serve the actual back of the card. All right, so now save that, and that is the front and the back of the business card for Cupcake. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and do the Facebook design for this company and applying everything we need to based on the identity guideline. All right, I'll see you then. All right, so make sure you have open the Facebook template.psd, and what we want to do is also switch over to Adobe Illustrator and make sure you have the identity guideline 2 opened up. And what we're going to do is take the logo as it stands, and also to contrast in the first project, we include the full logo with the icon or the symbol and the actual type. This time we're just going to use the 3 slices up here. So what I'll do is just go ahead and ungroup this real quick, take these, Control C, come back to Photoshop, and I'll go to File, New. We'll make a new document of 180 by 180 for the profile picture, and make sure resolution is 72, and set this to RGB if it's not already. And the background contents, you can leave the transparent and hit OK. I'll fill that real quickly with white, and then paste this in as a smart object. Oops, don't place yet. And we'll scale it down just so it fits here correctly, pretty decently. And I think that works out pretty well. Hit the move tool and select place. All right, so what we'll do is go ahead and I'm going to Control A to select all, and then just edit copy merged because we have 2 different layers here. Okay, so now what I'll do is just create a new layer, Control Shift N, make it a clipping mask right here, paste this in. Oops, I did that on cover photo, sorry about that. Let me back up real quick, and I'll go to profile picture, there we go. And this will be the clipping mask on that layer. And we'll paste that in, and it won't immediately show up because it pasted over here. I just got to drag it right over there, get rid of the dimensions. And we'll scale this down just a little bit, just so we can have it accurately match up to the correct size, just so we can get a good idea of what this thing will look like. All right, so now that is done. And also something that I didn't mention in the first project, this of course also gets scaled down to a much smaller size whenever a person, whenever you post a status update or whatever. So that's why it's always kind of important to keep it simple as possible. And if you are going to have type, make sure it's easily identifiable at that smaller size. All right, so now we'll go ahead and worry about the actual cover photo. And just for this fictional project, I'm going to use a free resource image from a user on deviantart.com, and they have a resources section where you can just search for random things if you need stock photos, and as long as you check out their their requirements, you should be able to be free to use them as long as you respect those. And so I'm going to use this, and we're going to modify it quite a bit. So I'm just going to hit download, and of course the URL is right here. And once you click download, it will download a larger size in another window. I'm going to right click and copy image, which you should be able to do in Firefox or Chrome. All right, so I'm going to go back to this area, and the cover photo, I want to make it this color, so it's really going to stand out. All right, so I'm going to Control-Shift-N for a new layer, and we can name it Cupcake, and make it a clipping mask. So if we paste this in, we'll see that it has a black background. So if we want to fix that real quick, we can go to File, New, and we can paste that in, and then real quickly just select contiguous up here as well. And the tolerance, whenever you have that set to a higher number like this, it may go inside or affect that area. You know, we may also want to experiment with background eraser tool. So if you select this, you can quickly get rid. It depends on what the tolerance is set at. So let's take the size real quick to something kind of large. So it'll do a pretty decent job. Right now the tolerance is only at 14%, so we could try something like 50 to see how well that works. So I can back up a few times just so we can get to that area. And that seems to do, see, once you get down there, that becomes an issue though. So we can go up around here. And if you gotta get that crosshair right there. All right. And take the size down just a little bit. All right, so what would be real quick just to get a nice cutout is just to use the pen tool with shape or path selected, and just go real quickly around here. You can hold Alt and left click to get rid of the direction angle, and we'll come down real quick here. You can also Alt, left click, and drag to affect where the next point will go. And this doesn't have to be perfect. I don't even think I'm going to be showing the bottom portion anyway, but we'll see. Come up around, and then what we can do is just come up around here, the cutout area, right click, make selection, make sure it's anti-aliased, and hit OK. And for me, it's inverting it, so Control-Shift-I will fix that, and then Control-C to copy. All right, so now we can paste that in, and we're not going to have it at a large size where you can really notice the very faint black outline. We may have to fix that though. But what I'm going to do is just scale this down a bit, maybe roughly right around there. Hit Apply, and I'm going to move in here real quick to fix this area up with the Path tool. Just come up around, right click, make selection, hit OK, Control-Shift-I, and delete. Bam. All right, so now we can play around with the layer blend mode just to see what this might look like, because I don't want it to just be like a photograph sitting there. So if you select twice on the blend mode up here for that layer and hit your down arrow key, you can begin to experiment with different views of this. Kind of like that. No, not really. And again, this is all about experimenting. You know, I think what I want to do, this is luminosity. What we can go do is image adjustments and then desaturate. And when you go to normal, now it's black and white. And you can filter through these to see if there's something that you additionally like. Or so you can also drop down this. And you know what? I kind of do want to get rid of, and I'm going to do a really quick job on that outline, because it's kind of noticeable. I'm just going to go up and around and come out here. Oops. Right click, make selection. Control-Shift-I and delete. Oops. Got to make sure you're on the actual layer before you do that. All right. And then the same thing over here. And I'm going to go quick because, you know, if this was an actual project, you want to make sure everything's really solid there. All right, and Control-Shift-I and delete. All right, so that looks much better. So let's switch back here to the identity guideline, and I want to take this one right here, the white version. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to create a new clipping mask layer. Although I'm sorry, if you select Smart Object, it just creates a new layer anyway. And what I want to do is, I think I may want to, yeah. All right, what I'm going to do is leave it just like this, hit place, and I'm going to right click and rasterize it. And I'm going to copy, or take the marquee tool and just copy the word mark portion, delete it, and then paste it. That way they're under two separate layers. And then we could take this one and situate it right over here, just like that. All right, so I like that appearance, and so that wraps up the Facebook template design. And for this project and the next, I'm not going to bother with the section where I imposed the graphics for the business card and also the this Facebook page, simply because we already done it and the process is the same for that. So if you wanted to do that on your own, you're completely fine. You could just refer back to the first project's You Versus section where I believe it's referred to as tying it all together. So right now we're just going to consider this one complete, and we're going to move on to the third project, and I will see you then. All right. Hello and welcome to the third follow along project, and the name of this fictional company is Photographics. So the first part of that would be photograph, and then the next part would be fix, F-I-X. So photograph, G-R-A, and then F-I-X. So basically the idea behind this business is you can take photos that are old or damaged in some way, shape, or form, submit them to this team, and they will use their Photoshop magic to repair the photo. So it's a photo restoration business basically using Photoshop. So our job as visual identity designers, again, is to design a logo and then provide a full visual identity that this company can use in any of their future visual media communication. All right, so in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and brainstorm and sketch out a potential concept for this business. All right, welcome to this lesson where we're going to focus on sketching out a concept for the fictional company Cupcake. So just to reiterate, Cupcake is a fitness nutritional company, and the idea is to provide typically foods that are unhealthy in a healthy manner. So such as it is, we have cut cake, and the idea is taking that T, changing it to a P, and taking cupcake and making it cupcake, as in you can have your cupcake, you know, of course, and also be able to maintain a healthy lifestyle. All right, so instead of taking the route of a letter mark this time, we're going to do an actual unique symbol. And so the idea that I came up with, I was sketching out basically just you know, a general form of a cupcake. So if you think of a cupcake, typically it looks something like this. And I'll just make this real quick if I can. And this would be, for instance, the icing on the top, and then the cup portion below. All right, so how can we take something like that and turn it into an actual relevant symbol that has some type of nutritional meaning to it? So the idea I had is to take this basic form at the top. So we're going to forget about the bottom portion. And so basically we have three different dimensions here. And, you know, whenever you have a cupcake, you usually have the icing, and if some people can really pack it on there. But this is the general idea. So we have the three portions right here. So one thing that is generally associated with losing weight is fitness equipment or steps. So I thought of the idea of taking these and trying to represent them in the idea of steps or step aerobics, for example. And it will also have the meaning of cutting in a way that I portray these steps. So we want it to look kind of like a cupcake, and we also want it to look like steps, and we also want them to look as though they're cutting. So the idea that I had was to basically come up with the following shape right here. So we have the top portion, which would emulate the smaller over here, and come down here and come up a little bit, just like right there, and then the last portion right around here. All right, so if you can see, in a way, there is a similarity between the top portion of this cupcake and these steps, sort of. So let me real quickly, just so we can see it better, go ahead and fill that in with the pen. And there you have it. Basically, as I mentioned before, it has the same idea as kind of iterating steps and also representing slightly, if you look at it from a general perspective, the actual cupcake. And so my idea for the type is to have the cut cake underneath it. And for the colors, we're going to experiment as well in Adobe Illustrator in the next lesson. All right, so in this lesson, we're going to go ahead and take the sketch that we did in the previous lesson and make it a reality in here in Adobe Illustrator. So I'm going to go to File, New, and I'm going to name this Photographics, and I'm going to stick with 859 by 600 points and hit OK. And hit Control-1 to get to 100%, and then go to View, Show Grid, and View Snap to Grid. All right, so this time I'm going to left-click and drag out and select the rounded rectangle. Now, if you go to Edit, Preferences, General, you'll see the corner radius set right here. I'm just going to leave mine at 80 points, and you could set yours to that as well. All right, so if I just left-click over here and drag, I'm going to basically make this 3 grid blocks long, and this is going to serve as the actual band-aid. And then inside we're going to create another rounded rectangle. Now this time I want to make the border radius smaller. So if we go to Edit, Preferences, and General, we can just change this here to around 8 points. Hit OK. Alright, so I'm going to zoom up a few times. I'm also going to select this and change the opacity to 50% just so we can see. Actually, I may do it a little bit more than that, maybe by 20%, just so we can see inside here. So I'm going to take the rounded rectangle tool again, and I'm going to come in just one grid block right here and make it basically right here. That way everything is even and lined up in the center. All right. So now what we need to also do is add some circles which will serve as the sort of, they're kind of like holes inside the Band-Aid. We don't want to add too many of them because otherwise at smaller sizes it'll become blurred looking. But before I do that, I want to basically change the colors that we're going to use. So the opacity, I'm going to take back up to 100%, and I'm going to select both of these by holding Shift, and come over here to Gradient, and you can do the same thing over here as well. I'm going to get rid of the stroke, and I'm going to change the color to a light brown color right around there, and then double click on it and then just make it a little bit lighter, maybe right around there. And the color code for that is D6B390 if you want to use the same colors. Now we have a good general Band-Aid color right here, and this one I'm going to make a little bit lighter just so we can see it, and that is EBD1BF. All right. So now what I want to do, I want to take this again temporarily and take the opacity down to around 20%. And that way we could see these grid areas right here, the grid points. So I want to take this and make it a ellipse. And these will be white basically. So what I want to do is I'm going to put one right around here and hold Shift. Make that white. And just so I can get in a little bit closer, I want to scale in, or zoom up rather. And I'm going to put one right there. I'm going to hit Control C and then Control F and drag it up to this one up here. And I'm going to take both of these, Control C, Control F, move this right there. I'm going to move this one to this portion, move this one down as well. And take both of these, Control C, Control F, and put that right there. Now let's see what that looks like if we hit Control 1. And we go ahead, make that 100%. All right, so these are a little bit too big for my liking. So what we can do, real quickly, we'll go to View, and we'll turn off Snap to Grid. Make sure you only select the white ellipses and hit Shift and Alt to scale it down. Control 1. And let's go ahead back to View and turn on Snap to Grid. We'll make the opacity again on this 20%. And we can move these back into place. And they will snap into the correct position. Right around there. All right, so if I hit Control 1, we can now bring this back to 100%. All right, so what we can do now is take both of those, take all those, and hit Shift to deselect the actual Band-Aid. And let's zoom up again real quick. Control C, Control F, right click on it and go to Transform, Reflect, leave it on vertical, and hit OK. Now we can drag this over, holding Shift, and that should line up basically the same spot. All right, so now that we have that done, what we want to do is go ahead and take everything right here. I'm going to hit Control G to group that. And so we can see now in the layers we have one layer group. And I'm going to, if you come down here with it all selected, you'll see you can rotate it by taking your mouse right around here. Hold Shift and just go up once. So now it is at a perfect 45-degree angle. And now what we want to do is duplicate that. So Control C, Control F, and then we can right click that, transform, reflect, and make sure it's on vertical and hit OK. All right, so I want this one to be beneath. And so this one is now on top. And now what we can do is go ahead and make this one right here, this Band-Aid, a little bit darker. And so when you use the regular select tool and you're clicking on a group, it will select the whole group, but we just want the actual Band-Aid shape. So you could use the direct selection tool right here to click on it, and that way it will only select that. So let's go back to our foreground color right here, and we'll just make it slightly darker. And I'm using BF9879. Hit OK. All right. And I also want to kind of add a very brief shadow right here. So what I'm going to do is zoom up. And I'm going to take the pen tool. And I'm going to click just right around. Well, first I want to go to View and turn off Snap to Grid. So I'm going to click right around there. I can hold Shift. And then just up here, randomly. And then what I can do is, if we take this right here with the direct selection tool, and then this right here, and temporarily just move this over, I can go to Object with that selected, Path, Divide Objects Below, and I'll go ahead and take those three layers now, and we can move this back here with those three selected and just move it over a few times to make sure it's lined up or as needed. Actually, let me go back right there. And then I'm going to take this one right here that we divided below and change the color to be slightly darker. Right around there. Basically, we want to ungroup these right now. And so right click, ungroup, right click, and ungroup. And then we want to take the outside bandage layers. So we have this, hold Shift, select that one, and then this darker one in the middle. There we go. Once you have them all selected, hit Control C and then Control F. And take those and drag them to the very bottom. And if there's a layer that won't go beneath, all you have to do is just drag that up. All right, and then hit Control G. And once you have that, go ahead real quick over to Window Pathfinder and click Unite. Then hit Control H. Let's change our foreground color to a darker color right there. And then go to, well, we could actually do this two ways. You can go to Object, Path, Offset Path, or give it a stroke. And we could just give it a stroke. And around 10 points works well. All right, so now what we want to do is add the actual frame pieces, the corners. So to do that, let's go ahead and zoom up here on the upper right portion, or upper left rather. And I'm going to use the pen tool with View and Snap to Grid. And we'll make these 2 grid blocks long, these individual parts. Hold Shift, select up there, and then select right here. And if we go to Gradient, get rid of the fill. All right, we might want to make it bigger, but first it is definitely too large. Oops. Make sure you select it, and then bring down the stroke size. Hit Control 1. And I think right around there, 3 points is pretty good. So then we could take this, Control C and then Control F, transform, reflect, hit OK. We'll drag this over here, holding Shift. Take both of them, Control C, Control F, right click, transform, reflect, and this time horizontal. And then drag them down using Shift. And then Control 1. Now with both of them, or with all of them selected, holding Shift and left clicking and dragging, we can change the color to a black for the stroke. All right, so now at this point, nothing is converted to outlines as far as our strokes are concerned. So if I move that over to the left, Control C, Control F, move it over here to the right, and go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. Now we can scale this down to see what it looks like at smaller sizes. And it looks pretty good. All right, so now we can go ahead and get rid of this one, delete. And now we'll move this over. We're going to scale it down, say right around here, and move this over. Now let's go ahead and get some type. Photo, graph, and then FIX. I'm going to scale this up. And I'm going to change the font here to Source Sans Pro, light. And I'm going to right click it, or rather hit Shift, Control, Shift, and the letter O. That converts them to outlines. Right click, ungroup, select only. Actually, I'm going to back up real quick. Sorry about that. We need to first make this, if we Control H, we can see that, the FIX, bold. All right, and then what we can do is Control Shift the letter O, right click, ungroup, just group these up, Control G, and Control G. All right, so in relation to the size of this, I want to make this a little bit bigger. So if I hold Shift and scale that up, and place it right around here, I want to scale this down just slightly, holding Shift and Alt. All right, so if we take everything, scale it down to see what it looks like at smaller sizes, everything's readable. And that looks good. All right, so now what we can do is come over here, Control C, Control F, and we'll go ahead and make a black and white version of this. All right, so I'm going to come over here, and this will be a black and white version, and I'm going to make this portion, the outer portion, and this holding Shift. We're going to take that little shadow and then this as well, and we'll make these black. So I don't think that got selected. Make that black. This can be white, just like that. Hit Control 1. All right, there we go. All right, so now what we can do, I'm going to hide the grid real quick, View and hide grid. And I'm going to select our black color, select the rectangle tool, and go ahead and drag this to the very bottom. And lock it. Take all these, Control C, Control F, move that right there. And here's a cool tip. If you select all these, hit Control G, hit Control H just to get rid of all those points, and you go to Edit, Edit Colors, Invert Colors. It will invert a selection automatically, so we don't have to change all of those by hand. All right, and we also have over here the type, which can be white, and then we have our brackets that we have to worry about. We'll make that white, them white as well. All right, and that is it. When we go to open this up, and this applies for the previous ones. When we go to open this up, we don't want the black background as a part of this, so just temporarily I'm just going to hide this black layer right there. That way it's transparent. All right, so go ahead and make sure you save this as an AI file for use in the next lesson, where we're going to go ahead and get started on the visual identity guideline. All right, see you then. All right, so make sure you have the identity guideline from the previous project, Cupcake, open up. And what we want to do, I already saved this as for the third one, so save yours as well so you don't overwrite it if you want to save it. And also make sure the photographics AI files is open up here. So we're going to take this and Control C to copy it, and then remove this, delete, and paste this one in, Shift and Alt, and scale that up to a pretty good size, right around there. All right, so then what we want to do is get rid of these three, and I'm going to show this one. So I'll copy that, put it over here, and then these two as well. Now, this time, if we take all the layers real quick on this portion, with the exception to that dividing line, scale them down, maybe a little bit more. Actually, because these are horizontal logos and not vertical, kind of like they were before, this one down here, it'd be worth making this bigger. All right, just like that. And we can move these more into line vertically. All right, so that's good so far. And this one, it's not really worth kind of describing the icon, simply because it's pretty evident, you know, what this is about. Photograph right here, and then the fix is the band-aid. So the previous two, it was worth describing or doing, you know, some sort of explanation, but this one, not really worth it at all. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to come down here and take all of this. Actually, this right here is locked, so let me find that layer and unlock it in the layers area, and select everything, and we'll put this right here. All right, and we can specify our actual, I'm going to group that real quick, and Control C and Control F, and we'll move it right around here temporarily. All right, so our main color scheme, we're not going to use black this time. We're going to specify, I'm going to use the direct selection tool because this is a group. We're going to use this color. Actually, we'll start with the darker one, the darkest, which is right here. So we'll go ahead and, yeah, we can select this and then select that stroke. And then also specify the darker, the slightly dark or lighter version. And then this version, which is slightly lighter. And then this in here as well. All right, so let's go ahead and delete that. And now what I want to do is go through this process of lining these up. So since we've already done this, you don't want to see me sitting here doing this. So what I'll do is just pause this, and then when I have the correct values, I will restart the video. All right, and there are the values that are associated with these 4 colors. And the typeface was Source Sans Pro, I believe. So what I want to do is I'm going to open up the identity guideline for the first project that we did, which is right here. And I'm going to zoom up in this portion and then just copy everything that I see here, because Source Sans Pro does have different weights. So what we'll do is close that out, take these, delete those, and then paste these in right around there. And I'll go ahead and select everything. Source Sans Pro. Change this up to Source Sans Pro. All right, and this font, it has a lot. It has light, regular, or extra light, light, regular. You know, you see them all. So we'll just stick with this light, regular, bold, and black. And so this by default is extra light. So what I want to do is change that to light. Wait 1 second, where did this go? Must not have copied that. Let me get back here, dang it. Sorry about that. Actually, you know what, instead of doing that all again, I'll bring that back. We'll go to, we'll redo paste. Yeah, because that's not a big deal to fix. Sorry about that. There, much easier than what I was about to do. All right, so change these all again. Source Sans Pro. We'll start everything off at light. Oops, yeah, light. And then change this again. And this will become regular, bold, and black. All right, and then what we'll do is, yeah, this looks pretty good in and of itself. All right. All right, great. So that completes the identity guideline for our third project for photographics. And in the next lesson, we'll go ahead and do another business card. All right, I'll see you then. All right, so we're going to go ahead and apply this identity to an actual project. So we're going to do a business card again. And so make sure you have up the identity guideline for photographics and also the card.ai blank template. So what do we want to do is, again, take over this logo, Control C, and then paste it in here. And we'll scale this sucker down quite a bit, holding Shift and Alt. And this time we're going to, again, center align this horizontally. All right, so I'm going to click on Align and then make sure, are these grouped? No. So we have to make sure there's a group first before we align, and then we'll go ahead and hit Horizontal Align Center. And I'm going to just drag it down a tad bit, holding Shift. All right, so this time I want to create a horizontal block portion, and it's going to use one of these colors, I think the lighter one. So what I'll do is just out here, left click and drag right around there, and then use the eyedropper tool to give it that center color. And I'm going to also drag this down just a little bit and center this up vertically between this white part. You can use your arrow keys up and down. All right, that looks pretty good. And I want to go ahead and lock that layer so I can't select it. And then what I want to do is take this, Control C and then Control F. We're going to drag it to the top of that layer. I'm going to right click and ungroup it and just get rid of the type. And then just to create an extra element of the design, I'm going to create a watermark out of this specific Band-Aid going that way. So I'm going to zoom up real quick, and I'm going to start getting rid of, using the direct selection tool up here, some of these layers. So if I just select that portion, and you hit Control or Command H, you can see exactly what you're selecting. Oh, it would also be worth it to right click and ungroup these layers. That way you can just kind of get rid of most of it. This is also a stroke, so we can get rid of that. Get rid of these, and this, all of these. All right. And I also want to make these areas right here. I'm just going to, actually a quicker way to select everything, hold shift and deselect these portions just so we have the white circles covered, and then make it that color right there. All right, and so now what I want to do is take these, I'm going to group them, Control G, hit Control 1, zoom up a couple more times there. I'm going to scale this up and move this over roughly right around here for the size, for the scale, and move it up slightly. All right, and then what I'm going to do is go ahead and unlock this layer, and I'm going to duplicate it. So Control C and Control F, and then move this to the top. Now take both of these layers, and I'm going to just real quickly go ahead and select this layer, Control Shift and D to divide objects below, and that way I can ungroup this now and then just select the top portions to get rid of whatever was cut off. And that looks good right there. And now I will come down here and deselect this. We'll group that again. All right, and then we could take this again and lock it. All right, so just a very, kind of faint watermark, and just it adds an extra design element. So if we hit Control and semicolon, we'll see the very right of it will we'll have just enough space to see it fully, at least to this portion. Okay, so now what we want to do is go ahead and add the actual type. So we'll leave these guides up just to give us a point of reference, and we are using Source Sans Pro for the font. So I'll go ahead and put in the name, and you can always just switch it up in terms of how you're representing the people and all the other bits of information. So I'll change here to Source Sans Pro, and we'll use light for this. And I'm going to use bold for the name. All right, and then we'll go ahead and copy that. And down here, I will put an email again. All right, and I want to go ahead and take both of these and scale them down just a little bit. All right, and I'll put this right around here. And then beneath this, go ahead and put a number. And then copy that, Control C, Control F. And actually at this point, I think I could just put the website address aligned over here. So photographics.com. Make that a little bit smaller. All right, just like that. And I think we can take all three of these and just scale them just a tad bit. Yeah, right around there. And if we want, we can also increase this just to fill out more of this right portion. And that is good right there. Okay, so that takes care of the front. So go ahead and save this as the front card. And I've done so. So you can also take everything here, convert it to outlines, Control Shift letter O, and save this as well. Oops, I'm going to back up. I overwrote my initial one. Save that. take everything, Control Shift letter O, and then also File Save As, and Front Outlines. All right, so then real quickly we'll save this again as back. All right, and we'll go ahead and get rid of the type here, and we'll get rid of this, and we'll also get rid of the type. Oops, 1 second, right click and ungroup that. All right, and then we'll take this, move it to the bottom real quick, and we'll go ahead and increase the size just to match the top. I'm gonna hit Control semicolon to get rid of those. Oops. And this time, instead of centering it up, we'll just do something slightly different. And put it right around there. Okay, and then I will take out the rectangle tool and we'll divide everything beneath it. So Control, Shift, and D. Take the direct selection tool and select just underneath everything. Hit delete twice. And do this one more time. Control Shift D. Take the direct selection tool and delete just the edge of that circle. All right, and that is it. So yeah, obviously when it comes to business card design, there's no right or wrong for the most part. When it comes to designing just interesting things like for the back of the card. So yeah, so that is it for the business card design. So in the next lesson, we'll go ahead and tackle again the Facebook design by applying the specs in the identity guideline. All right, I'll see you then. All right, so make sure you have the Facebook template.psd open, and also in Adobe Illustrator, make sure you have the Identity Guideline 3 open. And this time for the profile picture, we're going to feature just this symbol over here. So I'm going to take this, Control C. We're going to go to File, New real quick, 180 by 180. And we'll make sure this is RGB because we're not working with print. Fill that in with a white color and paste that in as a smart object. Oops, did that last time. There we go. And make this roughly right around that size, holding Shift and Alt, and hit place. Okay, so now what we can do is go ahead and edit, copy, merge that, and I will select the profile picture layer, Control Shift N for a new layer, make it a clipping mask, and hide the dimensions area. Paste that in, Control V, and move it over here, and scale it down just a little bit. Hit apply, and you can use your keyboard arrow keys to adjust that. Okay, and now for the cover photo, I want to use this color right here. Hit OK. And I'm also going to use DeviantArt again for the resources images, and I'm just gonna, I found just a random vintage image to use here, so I'm gonna hit download and right click and copy the image, and come back here. We'll create a new layer, Control Shift N, make it a clipping mask, hit OK, and then Control V to paste that in. And I'm going to make it pretty large, and I'm going to take the blend mode with my down key on my down arrow on my keyboard and just filter through these and try to find one that I think will work pretty well. We can always adjust the opacity as needed, and I think something right around here might be decent. All right, and we're going to switch back to Illustrator. And I'm going to take the white version down here, Control C to copy that, go back to Photoshop, and we'll go ahead and make a new clipping mask, Control Shift N. And, oh, you know what? I think I did the wrong one. We want the black version. There we go. We'll select all of it. There we go. Sorry about that. We're working with a light background, so we'd want the dark one. All right, so go back here and we'll paste this in, smart object, And you know, I'm not gonna include, because that would be a little bit redundant. Let me rasterize that real quick. Right click rasterize and then delete that. Just something like this. And if you wanted to kind of make it appear as though it's a little bit more of an old or aged type of photograph, what we could do is create a new layer. And oh, this is already an empty layer, so we'll just use that. Take the paintbrush tool and somewhere right around that size, I think, around 180. And I'll get the eyedropper and choose a pretty dark color, like a dark brown, and go around the edges. Kind of like this. And then you can either adjust the opacity down quite a bit. Yeah, I think that'll work well. And as you can see, very simple. You could also include like a website address. You know what? I think I'm going to do that. I know this is Source Sans Pro, so we could just put photographics, oops, FIX. Let me change that font real quick. Source Sans Pro. And change this to bold. This one to light. And then put .com. Control T. Put it right around there. Select Move tool and hit apply. Make sure that's all lined up. All right, just like that. All right, so that concludes the Facebook template design for this project, and that is it. So go ahead and check out the closing video where we will do a quick overview of what we learned, and also I will introduce you to the designcourse.com mentor program. All right, so I'll see you then. All right, goodbye.